welcome to this episode of Ask Aviel. My name is Aviel. It is my pleasure to share with you what I have discovered in my walk so that we can learn and grow together. In the very beginning, God gave man instructions to be fruitful and multiply. The enemy of God, the serpent, wanted to be like God and also to give his own instructions to man. Man was tempted to be like God. Adam and Eve took the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil because they wanted to be like God. Cain wanted to be like God, and he took a life. All life belongs to God. Only God has the right to give life or to take back a life. Cain did a worse thing than Adam. Cain took the life of his own flesh and blood, his brother Abel. Lamech, the descendant of Cain, later killed a youth. Lamech took on the sin nature of Cain. Now this Lamech was not Noah's father, but a different Lamech with the same name. This Lamech was from the line of Cain. In Genesis 4 verse 19, we learn that Lamech married two women, one named Ada and the other Zillah. Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to me, wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. The word El means God. It comes from the word Elohim. In that generation, people started using the name of the Holy One in their own personal names. They would incorporate the divine name into their names, such as Mehuyael, Metushael, and Mahalalel. This is according to Genesis 4 verse 18 and Genesis 5 verse 12. In Genesis 11, we learn that the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered all over the face of the whole earth. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, If, as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That's why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. At that time, the whole world only spoke one language, the same one as Noah spoke. That language was likely to be the same one that Adam spoke. It would have been preserved through the flood and continued on in use after the flood. The whole world understood one another. The descendants of Noah found a very convenient, spacious place to settle in the land of Shinar, a spacious, fruitful plain able to contain them all. It was a fertile valley, watered by the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. The people didn't use stone, but made bricks and baked them to make them strong. They used substandard material to build the tower. They wanted to build a glorious tower, but they used material that portrayed an image of strength, but was not of the best quality. In Genesis 9 verse 1, God commanded man to spread out over the earth. In Genesis 9 verse 7, God repeated that command. God ordered the people to replenish the earth, disperse and multiply. No, they said, we will not. We will live and die together. They wanted to unite in one glorious empire. Mankind wanted to bind themselves to one another and to settle together in one body. They didn't want to enlarge their borders on earth under the divine protection. They declared war with heaven. The people used waterproof materials to secure themselves against the waters of another flood. Perhaps they were afraid of the rain or frightened of another flood. God had promised them with a rainbow that He would not drown the world again, but they trusted in a tower of their own making rather than the promise of God. Men did not believe God's promise, even though it was big and beautifully evident in the sky each time rain fell. They wanted to build a city with a tower, with the top reaching to heaven, defying what God said. Perhaps they had pride like the enemy who said in Isaiah 14, "I will ascend into heaven. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High." Perhaps the people wanted to be like the Most High, or at least come near Him, but they wanted to do that in their own height and status, not on God's terms. Men forgot their place, who they really were. They thought that creeping on earth was beneath them and resolved to climb to heaven in their own way, in their own strength. They intended to build a city and a tower with the top in heaven, God's dwelling place, reaching to the sky, and make a name for themselves. They didn't want to be scattered over the whole earth. They were afraid of dispersion. Mankind united to build a city and a tower to prevent separation from one another. They had pride and ambition, a strong desire to be independent of God's power. It was a thirst for absolute power. They preferred their own glory to God's promise. Nimrod was the head of the building project. In 1 Chronicles 1 verse 10, Cush became the father of Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. Nimrod was a mighty one on the earth, but not in a good way. He ruled over Babel, which was the first organized rebellion of humans against God. The name Nimrod itself means, "Let us rebel." He was a rebel before the Lord. Nimrod was a mighty hunter before the Lord. This was not a compliment of Nimrod. Nimrod was an offense before the face of God. This was not talking about Nimrod's ability to hunt wild game. He was not a hunter of animals. He was a hunter of men and a warrior. He had an ability to fight and kill and rule ruthlessly. He was powerful in hunting, and he was wicked before the Lord, for he was a hunter of the sons of men. He encouraged others to depart from the Lord and to build their own empire. He wanted to be a king like God. This was the first mention of the word kingdom in the scriptures. Men no longer trusted in God, but rather in their own skill and ability. In Micah 5 verse 6, Assyria is called the land of Nimrod. Nineveh was the capital of Assyria. Nineveh was the city that God called the prophet Jonah to warn that it would soon be overturned. Later, Prophet Nahum also prophesied about Nineveh. Assyria was terribly cruel, and they boasted of their cruelty. They cut off people's heads and formed them into pillars. They killed people and spread their skin upon the city wall. They cut off hands and fingers, noses, ears, and dug out the eyes of their captives. They cut off the limbs of their captives. They burned their captives alive with fire. They formed the corpses of their captives into pillars. They made pillars of the living and pillars of heads around about the city. Nimrod's kingdoms fell, Assyria to Babylon, Babylon to Persia, and Persia to the Greeks. What is the book of Genesis about? Some people say it is about the creation of the world. That is not quite true, as creation only takes up one chapter. Genesis is more about relationships and families. If we want to have better relationships with our families, we can read Genesis for some great guidance there. Genesis is the greatest relationship book we'll ever read. Genesis teaches us all about how to handle family conflict. Family relationships dominate the pages of Genesis. The story of Adam and Eve is about how a husband and wife blame each other for a mistake that both of them made. We have a few stories on sibling rivalry in Cain and Abel, Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, Rachel and Leah, and Joseph and his brothers. Then later, there was reconciliation between Joseph and his brothers. In the next generation, there was no sibling rivalry between Ephraim and Manasseh. In the garden, when God asked Adam about what he had done, Adam said, "It wasn't me, it was she." When God asked Eve what she had done, Eve said, "It wasn't me, it was the serpent." They did not take personal responsibility for what they did. When God asked Cain what he had done, Cain said, "It wasn't me. What has it got to do with me? Am I my brother's keeper?" He did not take moral responsibility. When God asked Noah to build the ark, Noah did everything exactly as what God told him to do. However, Noah was silent in the scriptures of Genesis. He did not manage to get anyone else into the boat besides his family. Noah had no collective responsibility for his extended family, his neighbors, or other people. In the end, Noah was naked, drunk, and in shame. Noah did not go and rebuild the world. He went from hero to zero. Adam, Cain, and Noah did not qualify to be the father of a new nation. But let us look at Abraham. Abraham challenged God in Genesis 18. Abraham questioned God. In Genesis 14, Abraham faced conflict and danger to rescue his nephew Lot. Abraham demonstrated both personal and moral responsibility. Unlike Cain, who killed his brother, Abraham went all out to rescue his kinsman Lot, who was taken captive by some kings. Abraham rose up to the challenge of taking personal responsibility. Abraham was an initiator. He did not just care for himself and his family. Abraham was not the conventional person. Abraham even argued with God for the sake of justice, to save the lives of strangers, even wicked strangers. That is why Abraham earned the name Father of Many Nations. Abraham was chosen by God for the things he would do, for the things his descendants would do in the future. Even though he was struggling to be a father, Abraham took time to be a moral hero. We are chosen in order to shape the future. We are chosen for what we are called to become, not for what we are. Our chosenness is for the future tense. God does not save us because of what great things we have done in the past or our good track record, but God saves us for what we are supposed to do in future. Who is the Bible character who is most like Yeshua? Who is the Bible character who reflects Yeshua's life the most? It is Joseph. Joseph was the beloved son of his father. Joseph was separated from home at 17, a very young age. Joseph was unfairly betrayed by his brothers. He did not see his father for a very long time. Just like Joseph was accused and sentenced to prison without a fair trial, in the same way, Yeshua HaMashiach was also sentenced to death without a fair trial. In Genesis 45 verse 3, when Joseph revealed himself and his true identity to his brothers, Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Does my father still live?" In the same way, when Yeshua comes back, he will also ask, "Is my father still alive in your hearts?" One day, Yeshua HaMashiach is coming back again. The world has wrongly portrayed him and his true identity has not yet been revealed to the world. We cannot recognize him because of how he has been wrongly presented to the world. But on the day he reveals himself, we will see him as he really is, the real Yeshua HaMashiach. Do we know what he is going to say? "I am Yeshua. Does my father still live?" Luke 18 verse 8, when the Son of Man comes, will he find that faith on earth? God has given to us and provided for us more than enough, even to overflowing. All we want to be is a blessing. We must not close our eyes to the needs around us, especially the need for Messiah in our lives. We want to endeavor to exalt him so that nations will know his name. The God we serve is indeed an awesome God. Thank you for joining me. I pray that this message inspires and challenges you. God bless you and your family. Shalom.